Have you ever stopped to think about why almost everyone says that money isn't that important, but lives tired, worried, and with the constant feeling of always being chasing after it? This is one of those phrases that everyone repeats without thinking, almost like a socially accepted mantra, but which is rarely truly questioned. And perhaps that's exactly where one of the biggest self-deceptions lies when it comes to personal finance and wealth building. From a young age, many people learn that talking too much about money is ugly, that worrying about money is a sign of greed or lack of spirituality, that what really matters are people. And yes, people matter, time matters, health matters, but the reality is that money is silently behind almost all of these things. Even so, we continue to pretend that it doesn't have that much weight. Have you ever experienced this? Think about the simplest decisions in your daily life, whether or not to accept a job, whether to live in a better place or stay where you can, whether to have children now or postpone them, whether to take care of your health calmly or put off medical exams, whether to travel, study, move to another city, leave a bad relationship. In theory, these decisions seem emotional or personal. In practice, there's almost always an invisible limit called money defining how far you can go. And when that limit gets tight, anxiety appears. Choices become fewer. The fear of the future begins to grow. The curious thing is that many people who say money doesn't matter are the same ones who live in debt, worried about bills, using credit cards as emotional anesthesia, and making bad financial decisions to alleviate immediate frustrations. Not because they are irresponsible, but because they have never been honest with themselves about the real role of money in their own lives. What you are about to discover may surprise you. When someone says money doesn't matter, what they often mean is, I don't want to deal with it right now. It's more comfortable to believe the problem isn't that big than to face numbers, limits, and difficult choices. But this denial comes at a silent price. It takes away freedom. It steals options. It creates a constant feeling of being trapped, even when working hard. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this completely changes how you view your decisions. Ultimately, money doesn't need to be the center of your life to control a large part of it. It's enough that it's lacking, and that's precisely why this topic is so unsettling. Because admitting that money matters more than we like to admit means taking responsibility, stopping hiding behind cliches, and facing our own financial reality without makeup. Perhaps, as you listen to this now, a specific situation from your life has come to mind. A no you gave because you had no other option. A yes you accepted out of fear. And it is from this uncomfortable honesty that something begins to change. Because there is a point, an invisible line, that separates those who live reacting to money from those who begin to use it consciously. It's as if there were a door that almost no one crosses, not for lack of opportunity, but because they avoid this conversation from the beginning. And it is precisely about this door that we will talk about next. As you listen to this, perhaps some part of your own story is silently fitting into everything that has been said so far. Sometimes it's not a big drama. It's something simple, a postponed decision, a missed opportunity, a dream that has diminished over time. And if this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Sometimes a short sentence says it all. When you write, you organize your thoughts, and at the same time, help other people who are going through the same thing to feel less alone. This space isn't just for silent watching, it's a place for exchange. Each comment expands the conversation, showing that this topic isn't isolated, that this concern isn't just yours. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people who also experience this confusing, burdensome, and often unresolved relationship with money. And if you feel this video brought any clarity, even a small amount, liking the video is a simple way to say, this matters. This gesture helps the content reach those who don't even know they need to hear this conversation. And if you're realizing that no one has ever talked to you about money like this, maybe it makes sense to subscribe to the channel, not as a commitment, but as a sign that you want to continue reflecting on these choices, these silent traps, and that door that almost no one crosses. The idea here isn't to promise shortcuts or magic formulas, but to build awareness little by little, with honest and uncomfortable conversations when they need to be. Because when more people participate, comment, like, and follow, This type of content gains strength to continue existing. It ceases to be just a video and becomes a community that thinks, questions, and grows together. And it is precisely at this point, when you stop just listening and start to get involved, that the conversation deepens. And what comes next begins to make even more sense. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a huge difference between saying that money doesn't buy everything and pretending that it controls almost nothing. This confusion is one of the most dangerous hidden truths when we talk about decisions, mindset, and building a more conscious financial journey. Money may not buy happiness, but it defines the landscape in which your life unfolds. And that changes everything. Notice how, in practice, money decides things that we prefer to call chance or bad times. It decides how much time you have to think before acting. It decides whether a problem becomes just an inconvenience or turns into a crisis. It decides whether you can say no calmly or if you need to accept anything out of fear. It's not about luxury, it's about the margin of choice. When money is scarce, even simple decisions become too burdensome. A minor health issue, a late payment, an unexpected job change. For those with savings, this is an adjustment. For those without, it becomes a huge emotional impact. The mind goes into survival mode. Anxiety takes over, and the quality of decisions suffers. Lack of money doesn't just create practical difficulties. It alters the way we think, react, and relate to the world. And this is almost never discussed honestly. There's also the issue of time, which many people ignore. Money does buy time, yes. Time to rest, to learn, to make mistakes without being destroyed by them. When money is always tight, time disappears. Everything becomes urgent. Everything needs to be resolved quickly. And living in this constant rhythm of pressure erodes clarity, patience, and even personal values. Not because the person is weak, but because the context is pressing. Ignoring the role of money isn't humility, it's exposure. It's leaving important decisions to chance, fear, or the next bill that comes due. And the most curious thing is that many people believe that admitting this is becoming materialistic, when in fact it's the opposite. It's taking responsibility. It's understanding the behind-the-scenes aspects of your own choices. It's realizing that money doesn't define who you are, but profoundly influences the path you are able to follow. When we look at this reality without romanticizing scarcity, a silent transformation begins. The mindset changes. Decisions become more conscious. Money ceases to be a taboo and becomes a tool. Not perfect, not magical, but real. And it is at this point that many people begin to move away from denial and closer to financial maturity, even without realizing it. Perhaps now, it's clearer why so many problems seem bigger than they really are, or why certain past choices weren't a lack of character, but a lack of options. There's an invisible line between ignoring money and understanding the impact it has on your life. Crossing that line doesn't solve everything, but it changes how you see each step of the journey. And when that perception clicks, other revelations begin to make sense. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's a precise point where everything starts to change. And it has nothing to do with earning more money, investing better, or discovering some secret strategy. The turning point happens when someone admits, without guilt or a prepared speech, that money does matter. Not as an end in itself, but as a decisive factor. And this admission, however simple it may seem, completely changes the way decisions are made. The biggest problem has never been loving money, as many people like to repeat. The real problem has always been not understanding its role. When money becomes taboo, it starts to act behind the scenes. It influences choices, creates fears, imposes limits, all without being questioned. When someone finally looks at this hidden truth and accepts that money has a real impact on life, something curious happens. The impulse diminishes. Decisions become slower, more thoughtful, less emotional, not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Admitting that money matters takes the weight off the constant improvisation. People stop deceiving themselves with pretty excuses and begin to see patterns. They understand why they repeat certain mistakes, why they always seem to be chasing after something, why small victories never bring lasting relief. This awareness doesn't come as a shock, but as a silent revelation. It's almost uncomfortable, because it forces one to take responsibility, but at the same time, it's liberating. This is the beginning of financial maturity. Not the kind sold in quick fixes, but the kind born from deep understanding. When you understand the role of money, it ceases to be an enemy or an obsession and becomes a tool. An imperfect, limited, but powerful tool. And tools only work well when used with intention. The mindset changes because now every decision carries context. Every choice has a foreseen consequence, not just one felt afterward. This is where many people begin to move out of survival mode. Even without realizing it, survival is about reacting. It's about making decisions out of fear, in a hurry, based on the short term. Admitting that money matters is the first step towards acting with vision, to exchange urgency for strategy, to get out of autopilot and start building something consistently. It's not about accumulating, it's about understanding the impact of each choice along the journey. There's a silent authority in those who think this way. It's not arrogance, it's stability. People who understand the role of money don't need to prove anything to anyone. They make fewer impulsive mistakes, expose themselves less to emotional traps, and are able to see opportunities that previously went unnoticed. It all starts with a simple but hard to swallow phrase. Money matters more than I admitted. And when that phrase stops being just an uncomfortable thought and starts being accepted, other layers begin to reveal themselves. Because understanding the role of money isn't the end of the process. It's just the point where the door starts to become visible. If this resonated with you, leave a comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this is where the idea of the shark door begins to take real shape. Not as a pretty concept, but as a silent dividing line in life's path. When people talk about this door, many imagine something distant, elitist, almost fantastical, as if it were a place reserved for financial geniuses or lucky people. But the hidden truth is far less glamorous, and at the same time, much more uncomfortable. The Shark Gate has nothing to do with getting rich quick, daring bets, or miracle formulas. It represents that specific point in the journey where money stops being just something that comes and goes and starts generating an impact in your favor. It's when decisions made long ago begin to give you back time, options, and peace of mind. It's not a leap, it's a transition. And perhaps that's why almost no one gets close to it. Most people live on autopilot financially. They receive, spend, repeat. They avoid looking at bank statements, shy away from numbers, and postpone important decisions, not out of laziness, but out of discomfort. Difficult conversations about money require honesty. They require admitting mistakes, limits, bad choices. And while these conversations are avoided, the door simply doesn't appear. It doesn't open for those who run, but for those who stop and look. There's a lot going on behind the scenes that almost nobody wants to see. Small, repeated decisions, standardized expenses, constant justification. Everything seems harmless in isolation, but over time, you build a path that leads far away from that door. The curious thing is that it's not the lack of rent that keeps people away. It's a lack of awareness. People who earn well may be even more detached than someone who earns little, precisely because they believe they don't. Need to worry now. Getting close to the Shark Gate requires a change of mindset. It requires moving away from emotional survival and adopting a logic of intention. It means treating money as a strategic tool, not as a reward or punishment. It means understanding that money starting to work in your favor isn't magic. It's a consequence of less impulsive decisions, more clarity, and accepting uncomfortable truths. And perhaps the most intriguing thing is this: the door makes no noise. It doesn't draw attention. It promises nothing. It only becomes visible when a person changes the way they see their own money. On the other side, there is no perfection, but there is room for error, room to make mistakes without collapsing, room to choose without fear, room to build without haste. That's what sparks so much curiosity, because almost no one explains what really separates those who get there from those who spend their whole lives going in circles. When you understand why this door remains invisible to most, you begin to realize that the problem was never ability, intelligence, or luck. It was avoiding the initial discomfort. And when this realization clicks, something begins to reorganize internally, opening up space to see layers that previously seemed inaccessible. If this sparks something in you, leave a comment below. That makes sense to me. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because there's a specific moment, almost silent, when everything truly begins to change. It's not when your income increases, nor when an external opportunity arises. It's when you stop running from your own financial reality, when you decide to look at the numbers without excuses, without comparing yourself to others, and above all, without shame. This moment isn't comfortable, but it's transformative. Escaping financial reality often comes disguised as normalcy. A person works, pays bills, moves on, and tells themselves they're managing. You avoid opening spreadsheets, avoid calculating how much is actually left over, avoid confronting past decisions that still have an impact. Everything seems under control until the day a detail goes off script and the emotional castle begins to crumble. The problem isn't the mistake itself, it's the accumulated lack of awareness. When someone decides to face their situation as it is, something changes internally. It's not a shock, it's an alignment. The mindset ceases to be defensive and becomes investigative. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" the question becomes, "What are my decisions building?" This change in perspective removes the weight of guilt and focuses on responsibility. And responsibility is not cold or insensitive, it is mature. Admitting that money matters doesn't harden anyone. On the contrary, it brings dignity to choices. It allows you to say, "Not yet," without resentment. It allows you to plan without excessive anxiety. It allows you to make mistakes with less impact. When you stop comparing yourself and start observing yourself, the journey gains coherence. Financial life ceases to be a sequence of reactions and begins to become a conscious, albeit slow, process. This is the point where many revelations emerge. You realize that some pains weren't due to a lack of ability, but a lack of clarity. That certain mistakes were repeated not by chance, but by invisible patterns. Looking at this requires courage, but it also brings relief, because for the first time, you understand where you really are. And only those who know where they are can decide where they want to go. This moment doesn't solve everything, but it shifts the focus. The relationship with money becomes more honest, more strategic, more human. From then on, practical decisions begin to make sense. Common mistakes become easier to identify. Strategies cease to seem distant and become achievable tools, not as promises, but as paths. Paths that only reveal themselves when denial is left behind and awareness takes the wheel. And when that key turns internally, it becomes clear that building wealth is not an isolated act, but a sequence of choices aligned with reality. It is in this state of lucidity that the ground begins to be prepared for more concrete, more technical, more intentional steps, not as pressure, but as a natural continuation of this silent transformation that began within. If this resonates with you, leave a comment below. I'm on this journey too. If you've made it this far, it's because something in this conversation has truly resonated with you from beginning to end. And when that happens, it's worth continuing this journey together. Subscribing to the channel is just a simple way of saying that this type of reflection helps you, organizes you internally, and makes you think more carefully about the decisions ahead. That's how this space continues to exist and mature. If this makes sense to you, leave a comment writing, "This message was for me." I truly read them, and this also shows anyone who comes along later that this conversation didn't go unnoticed. And if at any point you felt that this video resonated with a part of your story, a like is a silent but powerful gesture of connection. It keeps this type of content alive. And there's a video right here that perfectly complements this topic, delves deeper into some ideas, and helps connect the dots on this journey. Click on it and continue reading.